I have been asked by a subscriber to my channel to recite some excerpts from the Gosho, which literally means honorable writings and refers to the writings of Nichiren Daishonin, the 13th century monk who was a contemporary of Shinran and Honen, as well as followers of the Tendai, Chan, and Shingon, or esoteric Buddhist traditions. So herein I will recite a letter, or at least most of a letter, that Nichiren wrote to a follower called A Ship to Cross the Sea of Suffering. Nichiren Daishonin wrote this letter at Kamakura in the first year of Kocho, or 1261, about 2 weeks before he was exiled to Ito in Izu. The title is drawn from a passage in the Medicine King chapter of the Lotus Sutra that speaks of, quote, a ship in which to cross the water, close quote. In this letter, the Daishonin teaches that the Daimoku of the Lotus Sutra is the, quote, ship that can unfailingly transport one across the sea of life's inevitable sufferings to the distant shore of enlightenment. And of course, Nichiren, his basic message was to recite the Daimoku, or the title of the Lotus Sutra, Myoho Renge Kyo, which is recited within the Nichiren school as well as its offshoots, such as the Soka Gakkai tradition. At the end of this reading, I will reference the Medicine King chapter as to what the little snippet was that Nichiren was thinking about when he wrote this letter. But in any case, here goes the letter. In the latter day of the law, the votary of the Lotus Sutra will appear without fail. And by the way, thinking about the term votary, I kind of looked it up, and I think we're talking about something like the devotee, a devotee of the Lotus Sutra. Again, in the latter day of the law, the votary of the Lotus Sutra will appear without fail. The greater the hardships befalling him, the greater delight he feels, because of his strong faith. Doesn't a fire burn more briskly when logs are added? All rivers flow into the sea, but does the sea turn back their waters? The currents of hardship pour into the sea of the Lotus Sutra and rush against its votary. The river is not rejected by the ocean, nor does the votary reject suffering. Were it not for the flowing rivers, there would be no sea. Likewise, without tribulation, there would be no votary of the Lotus Sutra. As Chantai stated, quote, the various rivers flow into the sea, and logs make a fire burn more briskly, close quote. You should realize that it is because of a profound karmic relationship from the past that you can teach others even a sentence or phrase of the Lotus Sutra. The sutra reads, quote, nor will they hear the correct law. Such people are difficult to save, close quote. The correct law means the Lotus Sutra. It is difficult to save those who are deaf to the teachings of this sutra. A passage from the Teacher of the Law chapter reads, quote, if one of these good men or good women, in the time after I have passed into extinction, is able to secretly expound the Lotus Sutra to one person, even one phrase of it, then you should know that he or she is the envoy of the Thus Come One. Close quote. This means that anyone who teaches others even a single phrase of the Lotus Sutra is the envoy of the Thus Come One, whether that person be priest or layman, nun or laywoman. One who listens to even a sentence or phrase of the sutra and cherishes it deeply in one's heart may be likened to a ship that crosses the sea of the sufferings of birth and death. The great teacher Myoho stated, quote, even a single phrase cherished deep in one's heart will, without fail, help one reach the opposite shore. To ponder one phrase and practice it is to exercise navigation. Close quote. Only the ship of Myoho Renge Kyo enables one to cross the sea of the sufferings of birth and death. The Lotus Sutra speaks of, quote, someone finding a ship in which to cross the water, close quote. This ship might be described as follows. As a shipbuilder of infinitely profound wisdom, the world-honored one of great enlightenment, the Lord of teachings, gathered the lumber of 4 flavors and 8 teachings, planed it by honestly discarding the provisional teachings, cut and assembled the planks, forming a perfect unity of both right and wrong, and completed the craft by driving home the spikes of the one true teaching that is comparable to the flavor of ghee. Thus he launched the ship upon the sea of the sufferings of birth and death, unfurling its sails of the 3,000 realms on the mast of the one true teaching of the middle way, driven by the fair wind of the true aspect of all phenomena. The vessel surges ahead, carrying aboard all people who can gain entrance through faith alone. The thus come one, Shakyamuni, is at the helm. The thus come one, many treasures, takes up the mooring rope. And the 4 bodhisattvas, led by superior practices, row quickly, matching one another as perfectly as a box and its lid. This is the ship in, quote, a ship in which to cross the water, close quote. Believe this wholeheartedly. With my deep respect, Nichiren. So in this letter, Nichiren actually makes reference to several teachings, several Buddhist teachings and references. But, let's just focus on the one that pertains to the Lotus Sutra, where in the Bodhisattva Medicine King chapter of the Lotus Sutra, there's an extensive section essentially praising the Lotus Sutra itself and talking about its benefits. And in this paragraph that I'll read right now, we find embedded the reference to the ship that crosses the sea of suffering. We find the words, "This sutra is that which can save all the living. This sutra can deliver all the living from pains and sufferings. This sutra is able greatly to benefit all the living and fulfill their desires. Just as a clear, cool pool is able to satisfy all those who are thirsty, as the cold who obtain a fire are satisfied, as the naked who find clothing, as a caravan of merchants who find a leader, as children who find their mother," and then we have the key phrase, "as at a ferry one who catches the boat, as a sick man who finds a doctor, as in the darkness one who obtains a lamp, as a poor man who finds a jewel, as people who find a king, as merchant venturers who gain the sea, and as a torch which dispels the darkness. So is it also with this Law Flower Sutra. It is able to deliver all the living from sufferings and all diseases, and is able to unloose all the bonds of mortal life." And then just to share the next paragraph where there's discussion about the merit of those who revere the Lotus Sutra, the so-called votary within Nichiren's letter. The sutra goes on to say, "If anyone, hearing this Law Flower Sutra, either himself copies or causes others to copy it, the limits of the sum of merit to be obtained cannot be calculated, even by the Buddha wisdom. If anyone copies this sutra and pays homage to it with flowers, scents, necklaces, incense, sandal powder, unguents, flags, canopies, garments, and various kinds of lamps, ghee lamps, oil lamps, lamps of scented oil, lamps of kampaka oil, lamps of sumana oil, lamps of patala oil, lamps of varshika oil, and lamps of navamalika oil, the merit to be obtained by him is equally inestimable." And then interestingly, even though Nichiren, of course, was critical of other schools of Buddhism and touted the focus on the Lotus Sutra and on the chanting of the Daimoku as being an exclusive practice, we do see reference to the Pure Land school in the next paragraph, where the Lotus Sutra says that if, after the extinction of the Buddha, in the last 500 years, there be any woman who hears this sutra and acts according to its teachings, at the close of this life she will go to the happy world where Amida Buddha dwells, encompassed by his host of great bodhisattvas, and will there be born in the middle of a lotus flower upon a jeweled throne.